It's focused on VAs.
Yeah, so I am I know this is controversial. I think accelerators are pretty much bad deals for entrepreneurs. I do not encourage them, with one exception.
Yep.
There's one that started especially for the military community by PenFed, the big federal credit union, and it's
Really?
phenomenal. It's a whole boot camp, and it runs them through the whole basics. It brings them with former graduates of the Penn Fed program, so they get peer to peer learning, which is I think is the most
Right.
valuable.
Very
And
important.
then it doesn't cost them anything.
All right, this is another episode of the Form Your Own Pack podcast, and my guest today is Doug Doan from Hivers and Strivers. Doug, thank you so much for joining me. How are you doing today?
Happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
All right, so for people that don't know, who is Doug Doan?
I'm the GP of a small early stage investment fund that invests exclusively in companies led by military vets. So we're very focused in our investment thesis. It's not for everyone. We don't try to be for everyone, but we're very focused on our entrepreneurs. So we'll invest in all kinds of different segments of the economy, but we're always going to be focused on having a military vet as our founder. Always, no exceptions.
And so, what was the motivation behind starting this?
Yeah, that's a great question. It came from discussions with some of my classmates. I'm a West Point grad, and we were real frustrated by the fact that even though the military academies and military in general has just these awesome people, that they're the some of the most likely to succeed, but some of the least likely to get funded. So it was just like crazy. So I mean, you can go and do the research, but you'll see that graduates of like Stanford are like by far, because they're of the proximity to Silicon Valley, receive the lion's share of early stage funding. And we looked it up, and where the military academies fall into that is like below Slippery Rock University. Just nothing wrong with Slippery Rock. It's a great place. I'm sure it's a great place. But we have these awesome people, and it was our thesis that Americans don't really understand how good some of their military is, and the media gives kind of a wrong impression because if you turn on the TV, it's always about wounded warriors and suicide rates and PTSD and all that stuff, those are real problems. But the vast majority of people that serve come out better than they went in, and the amount of leadership skills that they have is just off the scale. So we saw this as, frankly, a misinterpreted asset class that people didn't really understand. So we were going to put our money behind early stage companies led by military vets. We thought that they were going to outperform, and by God, they sure did. Because our performance is way, way ahead of everybody else. I mean,
Oh,
by
really? Okay.
factors of 10 or, oh yeah. I mean, so if you look at and that's an important thing. We're not a philanthropy by fault. There's too much, there's enough philanthropy out there. That's not
Yeah.
us. There's nothing wrong with philanthropy. You should go donate whatever amount of money to whatever cause you think is best, and I salute you for it. But we're not investing in military guys because we're sorry for them. That is not us. We're putting our money into these companies because we think we're going to get a better return. So the average early stage fund tries to get 15 to 20% returns on their investments. We're averaging really close to 200% IRR.
Wow,
So
that's
we can put
amazing.
numbers. Yes. Well, that's because and until others figure it out, if you're the first in an asset class that nobody really understands and nobody appreciates, you're going to do real well. And that's
Right.
whether it's whatever that asset class is. If you understand it early, you're going to do real well. So we've been very fortunate, and our companies have just kicked ass. They're just phenomenal people, and we love them. So that's that.
So do you think, I mean, obviously, there's a resilience factor. Do you think that military personnel, when they leave the military, are prone to start companies, or is it kind of the same as normal people leaving other educational experiences?
Yeah, I think I think they were less likely earlier, and I think that's changing. People kind of do what they know and they what feels comfortable. So a lot of former military guys used to go into the defense industry because it felt
Right.
easy and they
Yeah.
understood the terms, and their buddies probably went there. It's changing now, and there's been some phenomenal men and women that have gone out and done great things, taken their military experience and applied it to industry, and have just been phenomenal. There's guys that the point is a lot of Americans don't know that. I mean,
Right.
one of my favorite examples is Fred Smith at FedEx. He got all pissed off at he was a Marine Corps officer in Vietnam. Got all pissed off at how it was hard to get things resupplied. So I think I can make a company out of that. Of course, everybody told him no, you can't. Well, turns out Fred was right, and FedEx was born. But it came from an idea that he learned in Vietnam. On the tech side, you know, uh, big companies like Amazon, the guy that really built the whole AWS system was a West Point guy, Army Ranger. It wasn't some MIT, you know, um, computer scientist dude. It was a guy that could go get things done. And so the execution skills really become paramount in entrepreneurship. And that's what these guys have. And it's made more acute by the fact that most of the military vets that are leaving service now have done several tours in difficult places where they had to overcome hard things. And their leadership was challenged. And they survived that, and they did well with that, and they knew how to lead under stress and the worst conditions. And man, those skills are really useful when you're going to be an entrepreneur, because you're going to be faced with all sorts of problems. So having a person that's really been through tough situations really helps them become an entrepreneur.
And I think you said the magic word, which is execution. Like I think if we look at, let's say, the last 10 to 15 years, engineers have had probably outsized success. I'm getting tongue tied, because they're very methodical and they have a methodology for working through problems. And it sounds like that's kind of very similar with military, right? Like they don't see the same barriers as other people.
Yeah, their execution skills are really just a quantum level above others. But it's the basic leadership that's really, how to build a team, how to recruit them, how to inspire, how to get people to do something, move in a direction. That is the secret sauce of building any company, is the basic leadership skills to do all that. And if you went to any of the military academies, although we don't invest only in military academies, and you ask them, well, what do we do here? They don't produce majors of engineering majors or social science or anything else. They will tell you that their product is we are a leadership school. And that's a completely different way of looking at it. And in the military itself, if you whether you're an NCO or a non-commissioned officer or an officer, the military spends just ungodly amount of time on leader development. I mean, it's so far out above what any other industry, no industry does, but the military in terms of reinforcing in its leadership. So I think we're kind of in the net beneficiary of that, because we got these leaders that have been proven and invested in and time well-worn practices, and they come out and they're superb. That doesn't mean it's easy, but boy, do they have the skills to go do it.
So how do entrepreneurs who are ex-military find you, or how do you find them?
Yeah, so for the longest time, we're the only game in town. So we started this early. So if you in our world is it's kind of like a military world is kind of like a bunch of people in the Appalachian Mountains who have been marrying their cousins for like 15 generations. Everybody knows everybody, so it doesn't take long for you to invest in one guy, and then he tells his buddies, and then they tell everybody, and then so we have traditionally not done very much in terms of advertising, because we just don't. And people find us because we're really the only fund that invests exclusively in this space. Now, there's some others that are starting to join the fray, and I think that's great. but for the longest time, we didn't have to do anything. And now we
Yeah.
probably do. Now we probably
The,
need to, and
okay.
we're looking at that. But that's a new skill set for us too, because we've just been blessed by the fact that we're the only people in this space. I'm glad we're not the only ones. I'm trying to encourage more to get in here, but for right now, we're the only one with this very very specific rock hard investment thesis.
And are there any accelerator or kind of like, is there a Y Combinator of focused on VAs?
Yeah, so I am I know this is controversial. I think accelerators are pretty much bad deals for entrepreneurs. I do not encourage them, with one exception.
Yeah,
There's one that started especially for the military community by PenFed, the big federal credit union, and it's
really.
phenomenal. It's a whole boot camp, and it runs them through the whole basics. It brings them with former graduates of the PenFed program, so they get peer to peer learning, which is I think is the most
Right.
valuable.
Very
And
important.
then it doesn't cost them anything, which some of these accelerators, they're growing businesses of their own, and they take these big whacks of the equity of the company, and with a promise that they're going to introduce you to other folks and all that stuff. And sometimes that works, and in the past it probably worked really well. I'm dubious of whether it's the right model going forward, but I am not dubious at all about what PenFed does, and they're phenomenal. And it's James Shank is the CEO, West Point guy, CEO of PenFed, and he's brought this young woman, Seda Goff, who's just terrific, and that's just a wonderful program. And any military vet that's thinking about their company, starting a company, that's where they should go. They should really start to talk to PenFed.
Yeah, and I think we'll look into that as well. I think that's very interesting to understand. It sounds like again, they're very exclusive in a program that you endorse. So I'm always interested
Yeah.
in looking at that. We kind of evangelize a few key things. One is, as we run pitch events. So maybe we can talk about running pitch events for ex-military. That would be kind of interesting, and just see if we get some stuff that comes through, and maybe you'd be a judge for one of those.
Yeah, you're going to get blown away. These guys come at it a whole different level.
I like it.
In fact, one of the things I tell others that when they ask me, why should you put a military vet in? Why should you invest in a military vet? And one of the things I always tell them is it's going to make the rest of your portfolio shine, because these guys, I mean, really truthful, because these guys come in and they're just
Execute.
so different in their execution skills. And everybody looks around and goes, holy shit, I better pick it up, because
I
these
love
guys,
it.
they're out, these people are just phenomenal.
So as you might know, we run pitch events that are called winner takes all. So
Yep.
our concept has always been each of the founders stakes $100 on their pitch, and then the winner takes the pot. So it's kind of like they're
Yeah.
betting on themselves.
Yeah.
So I think that might be an interesting fit. I'd love to talk to you about doing that. If you had advice for any founder, if you could only give one piece of advice, what would that advice be?
Oh, it's all to me. It's always about the customer experience. They've got to find whatever their idea is. You better improve the end customer experience and better be supremely focused on that. And that's hard to do. And sometimes you don't know it at the beginning. I'll give you an example. We have a Marine, just a crazy Marine. I love this guy who every company starts with the entrepreneur getting angry at something, something
Right,
frustrating.
probably.
And so I
Yeah.
always love those stories. What made you angry? And then they always have a problem. In this case, this Marine was got out, and he's living with his, one of the guys he served with, and he's trying to figure out what he's going to do with his life. He's in San Francisco, and every time he goes down to the laundry room with his basket of laundry, which he doesn't want to do anyway, the machines are all clogged up or they're busy, and then he has to hump it back up the stairs. He just got angry with that. So he built a whole system that basically modernizes laundry,
Oh, wow.
it's now networked and configured, and and all the things that made him mad of getting the number of quarters together and all that stuff. It just made him angry. He fixed all that. But yet here's the last guy you would think, a Marine is going to solve the laundry problem, right?
That's
But we
wild.
love the guy because now he's rolling thousands and thousands of machines, and he's just a phenomenal guy. but my point is entrepreneurs can come from the least likely. He was the last guy you would expect to run a laundry business, a Marine, but he saw a problem and he brought his skills to tackle it, and then it just took off. And so I know a lot of people in Silicon Valley may not think a laundry business is worthwhile, but $6 a load, the stuff adds up,
Yeah,
so
totally. Well, and then I don't know if you've seen Cody Sanchez, and I think she's an ex-military vet, and either that or her husband, I can't remember, but she has contrarian capital, like where she invests in non-sexy businesses, basically. And
yeah.
they've built a $40 million portfolio apparently of like everything from laundromats to car washes to businesses that a lot of people don't necessarily think are,
Yeah, I'm a big
whether
fan of that. I'm a big fan of that because not every successful business is going to be a SaaS-based, Silicon
totally.
Valley-oriented, company.
Well, and I think you see that as a trend even in, like, I consider Y Combinator to have outside success. Techstars has done really well. And a lot of the companies in Y Combinator, recent batch that we've interviewed, have nothing to do with software. Like
Yeah.
there's a lot of really high, there's AI, which I guess technically is, there's ML based things that are solving really interesting problems. And there's um, synthetic biology stuff. You're like, wow, that's blowing my mind. So I think that's even taking it to the next level. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with the software space.
Yep.
So Doug, what sort of role has community or partnerships been in your success?
Well, the power of our whole system is our network. We have a shared bunch of people, and we are fierce for our guys. We're almost always going to lead every round we do. So we have power of our conviction. And in the investment space, not a lot of investment funds lead the round. They kind of follow in and jump in. That's not us, man. We're going to lead the round, and we're going to stick a guy on the board, and it's going to be somebody impactful, right? So,
Great.
I mean, if you have a former CEO of a big company, of a public company on your board, and you're in that space, that person's is likely to help guide you in a direction that, with all that experience, that can help shape the new startup. And it's us putting our thumb on the scale as much as we can. We want to give our companies every chance of success. But so our power is our network, and we've got ferocious people. I mean, again, the guy that invented AWS, West Point guy named Rick Dalzell, he's one of our board members.
Oh, great. Okay.
A lot of people don't know it was West Point guy that did that. The CEOs of big healthcare companies, they're on our team. So we've got this vast array of really talented people, and we work them really hard. I mean,
I like
I
it.
have my LPs. I mean, I am on my. If I think you can help one of our vet-led companies, man, I'm on you like a dog on a bone.
That's
And
great.
we bang away and bang away and bang away at it, and we're kind of fierce. And there's probably nobody. This is one of the great things about America. We're going through a lot of issues and a lot of problems, but I'll just tell you from my perspective. I'll call. There's not a single day that doesn't go by when I don't call somebody and say, "Hey, I got this vet-led company. Can you talk to them? Give them some advice." And I'm talking to everybody from the CEO of Amazon to everyone else, right? And not once has any of those people said no. Every time they say yes. Now they don't promise I'm gonna, give them a contract or invest in them. That's not what the ask is. The ask is, will you take some time and give this person the benefit of some of your advice? And every single time that person has said yes, every single time. So we have a powerful network and that's an awesome responsibility too, to manage all that. But
Right.
there's a ferocious amount of goodwill to support vet-led companies, and we really exploit that.
What is one company or one entrepreneur that you're excited about right now?
Oh, by far, we have a Navy guy, and for just start right there, for bunch of Army guys to invest in a Navy guy. That's our version of being ESG. That's as far as we go with diversity, is getting a Navy guy. But this Navy guy, we love him. Bill Lerner's his name. He came up with an idea that's phenomenal. 2 years ago, he came up with an idea that he noticed. He's a chemist. He noticed that there's a lot of plants and mostly chlorine factories factories where chlorine is made. I know not a lot of people know how this is done, but that vents up all the hydrogen out of a smokestack out of the back because it's a byproduct of making chlorine. And he went around and grabbed all that up, and now he's on his way of being one of the largest green hydrogen producers in the United States.
Oh, really?
And so he's gone from basically zero to a phenomenal company. And he's just hired military vets, and he just keeps expanding his presence. And that company is going to be something really extraordinary. It's called Independence Hydrogen, and they just got invested in by a public company called Suburban Propane that kind of understands how to move
Oh,
energy.
yeah, sure.
So yeah, so
it.
he's doing phenomenally well, and there's so much interest now in the green energy space that
Right.
we have expectations of him to be just off the scale. So he's one that we really love. But then we got other companies all kind of doing other little things, but that one will likely be just ferocious returns for all of our investors.
That's incredible. Well,
Yeah.
Doug, I want to acknowledge you for the work that you do, especially with veterans. It's really exciting. I'm just going to wrap up with a couple quick questions. The first one is, how do people get in touch with you?
LinkedIn's the best way. You can find me. I'm always out there on LinkedIn, so that's the easiest way.
Wonderful. We will include that in the show notes. The final thing is, as you know, when we interview interesting people on the podcast, we like you to nominate other interesting people. And it sounds like you got a Rolodex full of them. So who would you, Doug, like to nominate as a future guest of the Form Your Own Pack podcast?
Well, so I would say James Shank at Penn Fed. I think he's a phenomenal guy. And he's the one that's put this program together for really incubation and accelerators for vet-led companies. Again, it doesn't he's exclusive. You have to be a military vet, and that's not everybody's thing, but he's done a phenomenal job there.
I love it. So, James, you've been nominated as a featured guest to the Form Your Own Pack podcast. Oh, I'll mention one other thing, which is you had talked about a friend of yours that was at Vanderbilt. Maybe we can get 2 nominations.
Yeah, happy to do it. That's James J. Harrison, who runs the entrepreneurship program at Vanderbilt. He's a wonderful guy too.
All right, great. I squeezed 2 out of you, so that's a little unusual. I appreciate
it. I got a million. Come back for more.
Well, we'd be happy to talk to any of these people. They sound wonderful. Doug, thank you so much for spending time with me. We look forward to following your journey.
Happy to help. Thank you.